Solly Msimanga has been re-elected as the leader of the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng. The party in the province held its elective congress in Boksburg yesterday as it braces for the 2024 elections. Msimanga has vowed to take the ANC head-on through door-to-door campaigns and by holding the governing party accountable in the provincial legislature. He joins us now via our video link for the way ahead and possibly reflections on years gone by. Solly, it's great to see you. Thanks as always for making time, and I suppose congratulations are in order. This is the kind of thing I suppose one gets by putting in the work. But I always find it very interesting to listen to what is being said during the kind of contest you've just survived. You know, some of your detractors, for instance, were speaking about how perhaps you shouldn't be given a second term because you failed to actually grow the DA since 2020 when you were first elected. Now that you're on the other side, how do you view those comments and those people? Is it all fair in love and war, or have you taken note of those comments?
Well, look, I think, first of all, good afternoon to you, Ayanda, and good afternoon to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Let me start off by saying that, the records speak for itself. In 2020, when I took over, this party in the province was in pieces. It had fallen apart. You would remember that was the time Msimanga was leaving, had just left the party. John Moody had just left the party. Herman Mashaba just left the party. And, Tau had left the party. A number of people had left. And on their way out had actually then, destroyed a number of our structures here in Gauteng. So my job was to begin to rebuild those structures. And I can tell you right now, as I'm talking to you, 89% of our branches and our constituencies have been successfully launched. They are now on the ground doing what needs to be done. And we are now seeing the results. There's never been a by-election that, that I have fought that we have never won since I took over. There is now us gearing towards the election. We're training more of our activists in terms of how we're going to guard against electoral theft that we suspect might be taking place in this coming election. So there's a lot that we are doing, and I think that speaks for itself, and the delegates yesterday confirmed that the work that we have been doing is really good and needs to continue.
Sure. So you're unfazed, really, by some people who are suggesting that perhaps you're not the guy to take the DA to 2024?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not fazed in any way whatsoever about what they had to say. The delegates had spoken. Those that are working on the ground on a daily basis with me, did attest. You would have seen in the endorsements that I got, you would have seen in the results and the by-elections that we have had, that we have contested since 2020. The results speak for themselves. Yeah. And the delegates yesterday mainly were saying, there's no need to change a working formula. Continue towards 2024. That's what they were asking. That's what they're getting.
Sure. You're right. 2020 was quite the year. I think, in fact, you've been quoted as saying it's been among your toughest because outside of that exit of several prominent leaders, that was also the time, I think, when there was those allegations of sexual harassment against you. Look, the MPL who made those allegations has since been dismissed from the DA. But I suppose there's something to be said about how bad things can get. Like the mudslinging can potentially be reputational damaging. So with that in mind, I mean, how worried are you of those kind of disruptions or hurdles in the lead up to 2024 in a context where we are told that the terrain will indisputably be as precarious and unpredictable as ever?
Well, I'm not faced by those. I think I faced everything that I had to face. I've been cleared, of any wrongdoing. And I still maintain on that issue of sexual harassment that, unfortunately, weaponizing sexual GBV in South Africa is something that needs to be looked at. And there's unfortunately no recourse for people like me who have unfairly and unjustly been, led this route. But that is, by the way, I've maintained that the campaign that I was leading was not going to be negative internally because then I know the kind of damage that it does to an organization. It's not just about Solly Msimanga, but it has very negative effect going on. And this is something that we had stayed away from, and we're going to continue on a positive note. You would have heard in my closing remarks yesterday that South Africans are hungry, for hope. They're hungry for an alternative. And this is what I'm going to be concentrating on. I'm not going to be looking at the negativity. I want to make sure that the dream of the people that had in 1994, the people can revision South Africa and make sure that in 2024 they make that the reality. And that is my goal.
Yeah. Helen Ziller, who also spoke at that conference, of course, spoke about the DA being a spitting distance away from essentially taking over the ANC, at least according to your own polling in Gauteng. I mean, what does that mean for your strategy in the lead up to 2024? Are you planning for a DA in coalition or a DA in governance, especially when you consider just how much many might argue is working against the ANC in the lead up to next year?
Well, look, I mean, we're going at it full force. We're hoping to get a majority, but, if we don't get to that, there are options that we're looking at. Let me tell you, we are going for 1.37 million, plus 10% of the unregistered, plus 10% of the 14 million people that, were registered but didn't turn out to vote. If you're able to then add those numbers, you realize that the DA can actually then govern on its own. But should that not happen, we are going to ensure that part of the moonshot, conversations that are taking place begin to then also talk to the aspirations that we have of governing, Gauteng and indeed South Africa way better or very, very different to how the ANC has done so far.
Speaking about those discussions, my understanding is that there's some kind of convention that's going to take place this coming week in Kempton Park. And a number of organizations are apparently, this is according to reports today, Sunday, apparently concerned about the DA's posture towards the ANC in the lead up to that. There are calls for the party to sign a declaration that no matter what happens next year, you will not work with the ANC. What's your response to that?
Well, I think John has made it very, very clear that there's no conversation that is taking place with the ANC that we can put on record. The second part is that we said we want to govern differently to what the ANC is doing. So how do we then give them a lifeline if we want to govern differently, to what they have been doing? This country is in crisis. We have energy crisis. We have safety crisis. The economy is not growing. Health is, in deep trouble. Education is in deep trouble here. Social development is actually not taking place. Why would we then want to give the ANC a lifeline? And this is why I even said yesterday that our attitude is to take out the ANC government and to give it, to give the people of Gauteng an alternative. And we cannot talk about an alternative if we are busy cozying up to them. So I think, the talks of us cozying up to the ANC are very, very much misguided and actually are aiming at derailing what we had started with the Moonshot Pact. John has started the Moonshot Pact or initiated the Moonshot Pact, and those that want to then now, hijack it or derail it, will say statements like, what they're saying in today's papers, and which is very unfortunate that they're going into, a conversation already, having filters of what they are seeing or what they're expecting of the DA, which is very much wrong.
Okay. With that in mind, is the DA open to signing this declaration then?
Well, I don't know. That is something that the leader of the party, who is the initiator of the conversation, will have to then make that declaration. I cannot say on behalf of the party at this point, what is going to be signed. But I can tell you right now that our stance has been that, we are not going to be working with the ANC, but we are going to ensure that we work with parties that are aligned to making sure that South Africa does work and work for its people.
All right. As the leader of the party in Gauteng, though, do you reckon it'll be in the party's national interests to go ahead and sign this declaration, especially if you want to communicate the idea that you're sincere about not ever even considering working with the ANC post-2024?
Well, I mean, I'm saying to you that if we are willing not to engage with the ANC, then there shouldn't be a problem with signing that declaration. But I'm saying to you that, it is very much unfortunate that we are going into these conversations with people already, looking at the DA with eyes that are doubtful in terms of what our intentions are. And our intentions are very, very clear, as I said to you.
Sure, but I mean, to be fair, Solly, if in fact it is that cut, if it is in fact that clear, they are a bit, it is a bit concerning that the DA would not go ahead and sign this declaration. I mean, part, for instance, of what Michael Beaumont has said is that they were taken aback because, as far as they're concerned, they thought this would be the same as pushing an open door, right? It shouldn't have even been a discussion, the signing of the declaration, to begin with.
As I said to you, I cannot say that the declaration will be signed or will not be signed. It's something that just been proposed. The leader hasn't, I don't know what is the leader's stance on this particular issue. But I am saying to you that, we have said, why would we initiate the Moonshot Pact conversations if at the end of the day we are going to drop it and join with the ANC? That is not going to happen. At least from a Gauteng standpoint of view, we're not cozying up to that idea.
All right. John, yesterday, while he was speaking at that elective conference, also mentioned how he's hoping that Eagles will be set aside when this conference gets underway this coming week. He also spoke about the scars of battles past, suggesting that perhaps some organizations are emerging from our experience of coalitions so far, bruised a bit. Do you reckon that's the case for the DA in Gauteng?
Well, from the DA in Gauteng, you would know that another party, Action SA, was born partly out of people that were in the DA. But I'm glad to tell you that we have clawed back a lot of that lost ground. In Pretoria, we have taken most of the members that had actually gone. We go to Atchulu, we go to Mamelodi, Hammanskraal. We had clawed back some of those, a lot of those numbers. We have gone into places like your Santen, where they enjoyed a bit of support there. We have clawed back quite a lot because we realized that they were not mainly aimed at dislodging the ANC, but they were aiming at, competing with the DA instead of competing with the governing party. So the people are now waking up to the idea that, the only alternative and the only serious alternative to the ANC is the Democratic Alliance. And then this is why we are putting efforts towards our campaign. This is why we are putting efforts towards getting people registered and getting people canvassed so that they can come and vote for the Democratic Alliance.
Yeah, that's it though. You're mentioning this with the DA having lost the mayor's chains in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, and people are using that really as a kind of lens through which they should make sense of how the DA perhaps navigates its own coalition politics. I'm interested to find out from you, though, at the time, specifically in Johannesburg, when it looked like Mpho Phalatse was about to be voted out, some of the DA councillors in Johannesburg mentioned that in some instances, insights and advice from national leaders is a bit misplaced, even though it comes with good intentions, because they don't understand the very peculiar context in which politics happens in those areas. How are you going to protect yourself in Gauteng from exactly that? National leaders or leaders at a national level superimposing plans and suggestions which they think works elsewhere in a very different context here in Gauteng.
Well, I can tell you right now that there was no imposition that was coming from national or from the provincial in terms to that caucus. The ANC had signed an agreement or had already agreed with the EFF that they were going to take Johannesburg and the EFF was going to take Ekurhuleni. No amount of engaging or negotiation was going to change that. Panyaza Lesotho was on his own record saying that, they were aiming to take municipalities away from the Democratic Alliance by any means necessary. And this is why they took over, Johannesburg, they took over Ekurhuleni, they took over Mohale, against even some of the structures of the ANC in areas like Mohale, who were on record saying that, they had started seeing some changes ever since the Democratic Alliance had taken over and wanted the Democratic Alliance to then continue. So what I'm saying is that there was no imposition. And whatever is happening or what was happening was out of the control of the DA or any of the coalition partners that might want to ultimately blame the DA. But it had everything to do with us being in minority governments and the ANC and the EFF finding each other and being able to then put a majority together. So
the national leaders, as far as you're concerned, are giving you enough space to run Gauteng the way you think Gauteng should be run, at least from the DA's perspective?
I sit on coalition, what we call the coalition oversight group. I sit on the technical task team, including all the coalition partners. And I'm able to then say from a DA perspective, this is where we are, this is what we are doing. Or this is our stance on matters. And we are able from time to time even bringing our mayors onto these meetings for them to air their views, for them to air whatever they might be facing as challenges within the coalitions that they're leading. And this is something that, we have been allowed to really, control. And therefore, for anybody to then come and say that there is no say that is, or there's no, the lower structures don't have a say in terms of what is happening is very, very much untrue.
All right, Solly Msimanga, the new leader of the DA in Gauteng. No overstating, you've got your work cut out for you in the lead up to 2024. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Really do appreciate it.